Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is doing all right. Starting a little bit early this morning. I'm trying to get a few things finished up because I want to start getting some work done on a podcast. Let me say this first. If you enjoy the content, you can always support the content through Patreon, PayPal, or liking a video, sharing the video. All of those things are absolutely helpful to the channel. Also, Streamlabs. Streamlabs would allow a super chat alternative during or even when the show is not even on. I hate doing videos like this. Like, honest to God, hate doing videos like this. I'm a person. And as a person, I have certain political things that I want to get accomplished. And I am at the point where I have no belief in our political system working itself out. So, but that said, I don't have absolute knowledge. And I know for myself that there have been political changes that have taken place over the course of time. You know, even to the point of Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton. Those are monumental political changes that took place. Yes, minor changes along the way, but those things fundamentally transformed what it meant to be, let's say, a Republican or, at this point, a Democrat. The Thatcher era. Look, I said it to say this. As a person, I can see somebody and I can say, okay, here as a rational human being looking at a particular situation, and say, look, I think this person is earnest, and I think this person is trying to do decent things, and is, if we're being honest, a 20-something-year-old is thrown into this lion's pit of sorts. And then I'm stuck with the obligation of the show. And what I mean by that, this show takes a certain rule set when it looks at the world. And the rule set boils down to, here's an analysis of what's taking place in this particular political situation, regardless of who it is. Your person sitting on the moon, what do you see? That's it. Sometimes these things are in perfect alignment with one another, meaning I could say something about something and I feel a particular way about something, and as a person and as a show, and the world is great. There are other times where those things are remarkably in conflict, where as a person, there are certain things that I want, and there's certain things I believe in a roundabout way that, from the standpoint of the show, if I'm being honest, I don't necessarily want to talk about. And so we have this. And if I'm being honest, this is one of those things. I like Ocasio-Cortez. And all things being equal, I don't, this fake progressive stuff, I don't think that's necessarily a sensible way to look at that stuff. I think she is who she is. But at the same token, I can look at the world and say, what does it look like when a person is thrown into something where they're in somewhat of a bubble, and all of these people are whispering in their ear about what they should do, what's in their best interest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And knowing that anything that you do is going to piss somebody off because there's no way to do anything that gets everybody on your side. And ultimately, you're in this situation where, all right, the best that I can do is lower the amount of people who hate my guts. Fair enough. That's a horrible situation for anybody to be in. I experienced that in doing this show, so I can imagine what it's like in doing politics. But I'm stuck with the obligations of the show. And, whatever you want to think about my opinion, I would make the point that the left is essentially a valley of broken things. And like many broken things, or I've always made the point that the left is the political equivalent of an abused spouse, battered things tend to behave in certain ways. And the ways that they behave is not necessarily wrong. It is perfectly logical and rational for a being to behave in accordance to the environment. And you have a bunch of people that woke up. And for better or for worse, like many things, like wars and everything else, it's often the civilians that get killed. Look, I guess I'm making the point of this. The perspective that I have, I am what the Democratic Party built. Hello? And at this point, you're running as a Democrat. So the analysis of this, yes, is somewhat cynical. But I got to be honest, it's politics. And I'm more inclined to believe that from the standpoint of trying to get elected, that this analysis tends to be more right than not. But you be the judge. Nico House contacts the Ocasio-Cortez's camp. And now, I personally have sent messages to Ocasio-Cortez. This was, I think, before she was running, and I think maybe after. And I was snubbed. I'm not bitter about that at all. Not bitter one iota. I'm telling you that in no way about this am I bitter. No, seriously, I'm not bitter. No, I've hit her up, but whatever. Nico was able to get in contact with her campaign, and her campaign responded. Now, I did a video where I said sheepdog Ocasio-Cortez endorses Blue no matter who and Joe Crowley. I mean, not Joe Crowley, Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo in New York. And I showed the video of her on State of the Union talking to Jake Tapper. Jake, please don't raise my taxes, Tapper. Where she's out of nowhere says we need to vote for these guys, and we need to get these guys elected, including Cuomo. I made my point in the video of why I massively disagreed with this, and why this is one of those things where it's check, please. Not necessarily on her as a candidacy, but more so on that particular strategy. Yeah, I am massively against that strategy. Now, Nico House essentially makes a point to her, very eloquently, mind you, and I mean that in a sincere way, of, and he did this, he says this better than I did, saying, look, you are putting lefties who are supporting you in a difficult position, because the rationale of the left has been a certain degree of integrity, or just call it like it is, from the standpoint of a humanitarian standpoint, and to some degree honesty. Like, the honesty thing is a pushback of the nonsense that's the party itself. It's this thing where we just want people to be real people when they're talking, and I understand being real people kind of makes things rough, but I just mean, when Cory Booker was having this conversation with Andrew Gillum, and they're out there with the camera, like doing this with the camera and whatnot, and you're like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? All of the homeless people, why are you doing that? I don't want you to do that. That looks ridiculous. I just want you to be just be a person fighting for a particular thing. That's all I want. Now, I'm not saying this point for you. I'm just making the point that the left has gotten to that point of that's in its head, it's in its craw, and I got to be honest, I actually like that part about the left. I like that part about the left. I'm going to show the video. She walked back her comments, or at the very least, somebody in her campaign walked back her comments. The problem with the walk back is it implies reality is not reality, that blue is not blue, and that for whatever reason, up is not down, or something like up is down, left is right. Up is down, left is right. It's Orwellian in the way that this was given to Nico. Let's take a look at this. Don't take my word for this. This is the video itself. I apologize for the volume. The volume is not great. But I've asked my wife, I said, is this just me? Maybe I'm losing this. You hear it for yourself. You can hear for yourself. So let me flip this. And by the way, the original video that I took this from is no longer on the web. They got rid of the original video. Otherwise, I would be playing that. All right, so let's do this and this.
And a lot of down ballot candidates benefited from that. And what I also look forward to moving forward is us rallying behind all Democratic nominees, including the governor, to make sure that he wins in November.
All right. You heard that. Rally behind all Democrats and make sure that the governor wins in November. I guess the question becomes, is that an endorsement? Right? Let's take a look, listen to Nico in getting feedback from the campaign.
If there's any way for her to very clearly clarify why what she's doing and what she meant by that, it would be a great help. She's really put a lot of progressive journalists in a compromising position by endorsing him. So that's the text that I sent. And like I said, I like being as transparent as I can because I want you all to know where I'm coming from.
I'm not bitter at all. I'm not bitter at all. I'm joking. Let's let him play out.
Because at the end of the day, I am a progressive first. So, they responded with, Nico, to endorse someone means something in particular for us. AOC could support some things that Coumo has said he is going to do, but that is not an endorsement. I want to clarify, I said standing behind, I said, so it sounds like what you're saying is she's not endorsing, she's saying something totally different. She's saying that, quote unquote, standing behind is referring to the progressive policies that he may enact, not a full-throated endorsement. Correct. Yes, that is correct. She means to stand behind progressive policies and also the policies that other Democrats advocate for.
I'm sorry, that's not what I heard. Fair enough. If you want to make the argument that an endorsement is a very specific thing, fair enough. But I didn't hit her. I mean, and I know this is not about me. I'm just saying I didn't hit her on endorsement. I hit her on sheepdog and the vote blue no matter who thing. And she clearly articulated, play it again. I'm not, this wasn't about Democratic policy, anything. She said, vote Democrat. Because I fundamentally disagree with her about this, yeah, I am picking a little thing about this because it would be wrong for me to some degree not to when I have a very specific political ideology that disagrees with this very particular point. Let's let her play it again. Play it again, Sam.
Including the governor, to make sure that he wins in November. But, I think that what she did was that she centered a lot of phenomenal issues. She centered racial justice, she centered criminal justice reform, she centered the legalization of marijuana, single-payer health care, and a lot of down-ballot candidates benefited from that. And what I also look forward to moving forward is us rallying behind all Democratic nominees, including the governor, to make sure that he wins in November.
That's not, she didn't say policy. She said rally behind Democrats to make sure they win in November, including Coumo. Fair enough if you want to say that's not a technical endorsement, but I don't necessarily know what it matters. It sounds like an endorsement. Any regular human being that looks at that, particularly people who are supporting her, people who wanted something fundamentally different, in which case they put her as opposed to swamp creature Joe Crowley. To them, it looks like it says, go vote Crowley and vote, not Crowley, vote Coumo, and go put in Democrats. Because it says we need to rally behind Democrats and put them in office. Now, what Nico read flies in the face of reality from the standpoint of that. Don't take my word for it. You can look at it for yourself again. I don't know how many times you need to look at it, but she says very specifically vote Democrat. Vote blue no matter who, including Coumo. Now, look, from a political standpoint, there are two things. She has the men two ends. The lefties, from the standpoint of people who are strong advocates, let's say the base, her base, she has to keep that intact. By the same token, that's a certain small population from the standpoint of the larger United States, or the larger, you could say, New York, that she has to get to vote for her, meaning the entirety of the people who are going to vote for her are going to well extend beyond what she would consider to be her base. Meaning, yeah, she needs lefties or Democrats to actually vote for her. She needs both to vote for her if she's going to win. In fact is, if there's a situation where she loses, oh my God, a seat that Joe Crowley has kept for God knows how long, if she loses, oh my God, how do you mend those two ends? How do you mend it? You have one part of the base that is antagonistic to the other part because it's been brutally abused and broken. How do you mend those two ends? So yeah, you will go on television show and say vote blue no matter who, because you need, or you at the very least believe that you need to take a particular line because everybody else is taking that particular line, and you need to stay in a particular frame of reference. Those are the people who are around you that telling you this is the political winds as they go. These are the things that you need to do for X reasons. And I would guarantee you that she believes she has to do these things, otherwise she wouldn't be doing these things. Simultaneously, you have a lefty network of her base who is like, oh my God, how are you just doing what everybody else has done in that particular position, even if you have a different political ideology? How are you just doing what everybody else is doing? And what does that mean from the standpoint of what she's going to do when she gets in that office? And should we continue to support such? How do you mend those two ends? So yeah, you have to take a particular cadence when you're on a television show. What is the reach of State of the Union and compared to the reach of Nico House? It is easy for them to give Nico House to say, hey, we didn't mean that. Our bad. Up is down, left is right. Our bad. Let us clarify and walk back the comments. I'm sorry to put you guys in a bad spot. Let us clarify and walk back the comments. So yeah, the people who are their strong base will hear the message of what they gave to Nico. Whereas the people who, for the most part, that they would need to vote for him will hear the message on State of the Union, especially particularly if they're a little bit more trending towards just a basic random Democrat. That's the politics. That's the context. That sounds, again, slightly cynical. I don't like to necessarily feel like a bad guy for saying stuff like this because I hate doing shows like this. Like I said, there's a conflict in what I want versus what the show to some degree demands. But at the point where somebody says, "Hey, here's Nico's response to this," where they responded to him, I listened to that clip and I'm like, there is no reality in what was just given. And if Paul Ryan had given something like that to the press, I would have looked at it and I would have did the exact same show that I'm doing now, saying, look at what they're saying. There's no reality to what's being said. Now, fair enough. I grasp the difficulty of the situation that she's in. Fair enough. So this is kind of why I don't like doing these shows. I would much prefer her, it feels better for me when I do a show and I'm like, yes, as opposed to here's an explanation of what's took place from somebody who I actually like. So yeah, fair enough. That's everything. I don't like necessarily doing shows like this, man. I gain no joy out of this at all. I'm sorry the clip is a little low, but let's see who's here. Look, let me make one last point because this is going longer than I want. Nothing changes. Doing the exact same thing. Like, I understand this dynamic that you need a certain number of people to vote for you and everything. It's fair enough. And I even understand that you need to be able to work with the other Democrats. Fair enough. By the same token, the fact that your base is flipping out about this should get across how pissed off people are. And it's not just your base. I would wager to you, if you just walked out, the very fact that you won gets across a certain degree of how pissed off people are. They put you in office over somebody who's been in there for God knows how long. They want something different. They look at this because they want something different. They look at this and say, okay, will she hold her shape? All of this is an issue of trust. Will she hold her shape? I'm just giving you a heads up. What Nico is saying here is not wrong. This thing of, you've put people in somewhat of a difficult position because, people have advocated and they're not necessarily sure if you're going to hold your shape. It's the Alex Jones issue. Alex Jones is a defender of Donald Trump. And Alex Jones, after Donald Trump bombed Syria, Alex Jones comes out and flips out. I don't know if you've ever seen that. That's one of the best shows Alex Jones has ever done. He literally flips out. I think Alex Jones is a goofball. And I think after that show, I was like, wow, that was an amazing show. Whatever you want to think of him, the guy is an amazing salesman or an amazing showman. Amazing showman. Creative experiments. Jamarl, you're constantly being surprised by Democrats. You need to lower your expectation. You'll be much happier doing your show. No, I'm not constantly surprised by Democrats. I literally started that oh God, I'm not answering that. Cuomo argues it was a fluke. Yeah, after handily beating his progressive opponent, Democrats aren't looking to capitulate. No, they're not. And what's wild about that, on the show where she's saying vote Cuomo, there's a little blurb at the bottom that says Cuomo says her win was a fluke. Her win was a fluke. Martian villagers. JT, I asked you yesterday, I would ask you again, how would you avoid being fooled by fake Democrats? I don't think she's a fake. That's the part that I think you're missing. I think that's shallow thinking. Anybody who ties themselves to Bernie is doomed to compromise. I don't think that, man. All right, first, let's be clear on our terms. I don't know what fake means. I have no idea what fake means. Now, I know what I mean by fake. I don't know what you mean by fake. If we are talking about somebody who didn't believe what they were saying, then I think you're wrong. I don't think that's true at all. The same thing with Sanders. If you're making the point that the person doesn't believe it, then I think you're wrong. If you're saying that person will compromise, that's not the same thing as being fake. That's the person compromising. Now, you can say that the person shouldn't compromise, but that's a different thing than calling a person fake. I hope I hope we'll make the point clear. We can make the argument about compromise, but I want to make that clear that fake doesn't apply. It fails in its description of reality. That's the point I'm making. Second point, if we're going with this idea of they compromise, it depends on what they compromise on. Politics is compromise. You're never going to get everything you want. It depends on what it is. If it's, Medicare for all doesn't include abortions, yeah, that's not necessarily what I want, but is that a compromise I'm willing to take? Yes, I am. It depends on what you mean by compromise. Fake meaning they're incrementalists and willing to spend 1,000 years fighting for small changes, meanwhile they're promoting big changes. That I don't agree. No, I don't agree with that part. You honestly believe that Sanders, left to his own devices, would do incremental change from the perspective of what's taking place here? He's had Stephanie Kelton. Let's be very clear on this, because I think you're wrong. Sanders has Stephanie Kelton in his campaign. Stephanie Kelton is out there talking about, we're looking at money wrong, and that we should be using money in this kind of MMT way without her saying MMT and explaining to people why having fiat currency allows far more latitude in the way that we should be going about doing our affairs, meaning this austerity stuff is nonsense. That's a sea change. That's a fundamental difference in the way they're even looking at money itself. And your thing is saying that's incrementalism. That's not incrementalism. Bernie talked big changes, but he really just wanted Democrats to be a bit nicer. Yes and no. You can make the same argument about FDR. Yeah, FDR to some degree compromised to, you could say, save capitalism. But those compromises were major compromises. So major, in fact, that they were literally the mode of Democrats for the last 70, 80 years. You can say Sanders compromised, fair enough. You can say he was broken, fair enough. I would even agree with you on that. But you can't say he's fake. Or you can't say he was just doing it just because he wanted to make Democrats a little bit nicer. No, I think he wants to see change. I'm going to have to start getting call-ins again, man. I like arguing with you guys. I like fighting with my audience. I love fighting with my audience. FDR was an imperialist who undermined third parties and stifled. Yes, that's true. And stifled the growing strike movement. That is true. He was forced by the movement to do New Deal. Yes, that's true. That I agree with you on. Yes, I agree. We found consensus. We found consensus. Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. I got so much into the debate. Vote blue. Vote blue. They're all poo. Oh, that's nasty. That's nasty. Let's be honest. If Cory Booker ever endorsed me or the Democrats asked me to support any of their candidates, I'd stop my campaigning immediately. If I'm doing something where that can't even be conceived, I'm no longer representing my constituents. Wow, that's brutal. Isn't that? Let me read that again. And I'm going to explain why that's brutal. If Cory Booker ever endorsed me or the Democrats asked me to support any of their candidates, I'd stop campaigning immediately. If I'm doing something where that can even be conceived, I'm no longer representing my constituents. The reason I said this brutal is because if I'm supporting the party, then I'm no longer supporting my constituents because my constituents put me in order to take out the party. And I think that's true. I mean, I think that's true. I think that's true. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh. Tabitha Enriquez. Jamarl put curtly, how did FDR save capitalism? He did it by shifting responsibility from the market to the government the people pay. Yeah, but people were also hurting, and it also allowed this kind of intrusion into, let's say, intrusion by government in a way that wasn't necessarily thought of. Well, that intrusion by government in the way that most people haven't thought of is the device that you've been fighting over for God knows how long. Yeah, Social Security. I like Social Security. I like Medicare. I like the public having a conception that these things are possible within the context of this country. Yes, I like these things. I like these things. I don't hate him for doing these things. Can't believe I have a fight in this point on here. Well, I know why. We tend to be rabidly anti-capitalist, and this idea of saving capitalism doesn't go over well if I'm saying glowing things about FDR. Jamarl, you need to call in. Yeah, your analysis pissed me off. I want to argue. John Hill, call in. Take the piss out of me. Hold on. Let me give you let me see if I can find the call in. All right. John Hill. I'm sorry, I don't know this off the top of my head. All right, John Hill is about to call in. Once I can find the number to my own thing. Here we are. And maybe I should do this like every week or something. Like just call-ins in general. I stopped doing it because I know this sounds weird. I guess I don't know what to expect from a lot of this stuff. And so if it's like the same person calling in over and over, it's like, what's the point? It's not allowing the audience to call in. And the show is not me talking to the same person over and over again. What I found was in other scenarios, that's exactly what happens. Like that is literally exactly what happens. All right, let me see. John Hill. All right, John Hill. You know the funny part is, I've had people get angry at me and get very cross at me. And I often think to myself, dude, you can call in. Just like I am the easiest person in the world. Just, oh, yeah, man. Tim Flowbug, what, Jamal? You don't like my soft, silky voice? No, I didn't see. Keep in mind, guys, I can't see everybody. No, not Sylar. I wasn't even talking about Sylar. No, I wasn't talking about Sylar. Sylar was awesome. Sylar is fine. Not soft, silky voice. Not about a soft, silky voice. No, No. You're fine. Actually, you know what, if I'm thinking about it, my call-ins, yeah, I think it was that, but it wasn't you guys. You guys were fine. Come on, come on, come on. Where are you, John? You said you wanted to take the piss out of me. I'm waiting for you to take the piss out of me. Glenn Ford is right. Bernie is imperialist. Oh, wait. You called. Ah, there we are. Hello, John. What's going on?
Hello?
Yeah, John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So you're cross. That's something I said. Now, what was it that I said that you disliked? Or that you disagree with me on? Let me say it that way. That you disagree with me on. Now,
Yeah,
I'm giving you the... Wait. Let me give you the rule. My wife is and I think quite rightly, said that I need to keep phone calls to like 3-4 minutes. So if we need to debate this, fair enough. But let me know what it is that you disagree with me about.
I think the focus. I think that's the thing that is pissing me off. It's not just you in general. It's just I feel the whole leftist that claim they're leftist media.
Yeah.
On YouTube and social media, they focus on the wrong solution.
On the wrong solution? Wait. On the wrong solutions or just the wrong things?
Just the wrong thing in general.
Okay.
I'm hearing a feedback in the background, but
hold on, let me lower my volume.
But basically, I understand people are, they're seeing the Ortez woman and Bernie Sanders and stuff like that, and they talk the language of some of the policies that people want.
Yeah.
However, and I see it in the comments, and the people in general, and people are frustrated because they're weak individuals, and they're weak individuals to me by design. Like, to me, they're part of the system to give you hope that, okay, we can put this candidate up, and this is a hope within the system.
Yeah, it's
My
like
thing
like a
is-
new Obama, like a neo-Obama of sorts.
Yeah, it's just repackaged.
Yeah.
My thing is, you're never going to change the system, playing the political game.
Yeah.
Like, the political game is meant, like, they're going to put those candidates, to me, it's all designed. They're going to put those candidates there to make it seem like you have an option. But even if they get elected, they don't have enough, they're not going to have enough people to get anything passed within the current system. So, okay, you get the Ortiz woman in, she is now in Congress. It's her and how many other people that are fighting for these policies that the so-called left in America wants.
Yeah.
It's a convoluted game. Like it's to me, honestly, I think people need to stop focusing on politics itself. If you're focusing on it, I think what needs to be explained over and over again and drilled is the game.
Yeah.
Not we should be, putting our focus and all this energy into this one person or these few individuals that really, when you look at the totality, you can't change the system.
I feel you. Okay, fair enough. So, all right, fair enough. Would you agree with me that whether or not you pay attention to the political edifice, like government, it's still there. Like, whether it's not something you can really ignore. Like, I don't know how you ignore something like, because at the end of the day, the doom bringer, the guy who's standing at the door that people say we're okay with them using force to murder and maim and beat, is government. Like, whatever we want to think about it. Ultimately, we're stuck with this thing of this thing is here. And it would impose its will on us. Said it one more time, I'm sorry.
I said I understand that completely. But like I said,
But wait. Just wait a minute.
focus.
I want to agree with you on that part, though. I agree with you on this thing of putting an individual in a system that incentivizes people to behave in ways that are corrupt is not necessarily going to change that system. Is that fair?
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah. And so I think your point is, why are you guys focusing so much on Ocasio-Cortez if ultimately her going into the system is not going to change the system?
Exactly.
would you agree with me that there have been changes, like from a sea change, going like there are times in political histories where things have changed. Like, for example, FDR was a change. Teddy Roosevelt was a change. Even going so far as to Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan were changes. Not necessarily good changes, but they were changes in the standpoint of political mindset. Is that fair?
Yes, they're changes, but I would argue my argument would be, are they good changes?
FDR, yeah. People were dying on the streets.
To who? But to who?
To the people dying on the streets. I mean, the United States, during the time of the Great Depression, there's never going to be a situation where there is overnight, bam, and it's something different. We look at history in these in odd ways because we had this vantage point of hindsight where we can look over the span of like 100 years within the course of a few minutes. But when living during that time frame where you have people who are dying without healthcare or old people who, if I'm not mistaken, it cut poverty by 23%, in an amazing short span of time. Like, to those people, you can imagine that is monumental change. And to be fair, even now, people collect Social Security. No, it's not enough for them to make a living off. But the framing of that took place back then. That was a massive change. Would you agree with me on that?
To a point.
Okay. Fair enough. I'll take it. To what point?
Yeah. To a point, because honestly, you're saying that the people that are starving in the street, there were still people starving in the street, and that's more so on racial lines.
No, that's true.
Those policies that FDR passed, they benefited, white America.
That's true.
White Americans.
Right. He was forced to keep African Americans out of a lot of those things. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But that's, even if that's true, let's say it was completely racist. Does white people not count? Like, are we in a situation where, look, the whites that were saved and that don't count because the blacks weren't at it?
Like I said, I understand your point. I said I agree to a point. However, my like I said, this goes back to my frustration. We're looking at the system, and I kind of feel like the left is expecting the system to wake up one day, and the people in power to wake up one day, and they just like, oh, we're going to give you, like, honestly,
they're playing the game thinking that at some point that it's going to change. It's like, if you keep playing this game, at some point you'll be able to get your hands around the device itself and contort it and move the car in the other direction. Right? That's the argument. Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. At some point, when do you just throw the game away? And I feel like...
I don't disagree with you. That's the funny part. I don't disagree with you on this point. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I understand that. And I like I said, I watched the show, and I agree with most of the things you said. But my frustration is, like I said, it's the focus, because we keep focusing on the Cortez or, Sanders or, this supposedly progressive candidate. And like I said, when you look at the totality, it's not going to change the system. Yeah. It's just not. And until people understand that.
I try to make this point along economic lines. I try to make this point along economic lines. This thing of because it's like you're stuck in this weird place of not knowing what to do, right? I mean, ultimately, when I started the show, I used to talk about like Jack Fresco stuff, and after a while, like anybody else, you say, okay, what else is there to ping my consciousness? And you get into politics and news and all this other stuff, and I don't know how to wake people up in this outside of saying, look, you're giving 95% of your wealth to the top 1%. Why do you think that's fair? And even making this point even clearer of your entire concept of fairness is based on something that is exploiting you. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
try to hit it over and over and over again with this thing that some people will say, hey, that guy's right. I'm working for this company. Walmart is bringing in billions of dollars and I'm on food stamps. Why is this fair? Or somebody else who's working at a company that is like, God, I'm being ruthlessly exploited. Do you know, I'm here right now in Kenya. And I was talking to the Uber drivers. They're having a strike right now. And I was trying to get to the point where I can go and talk to the people who are head of the strike. I have a WhatsApp thing where I'm going to call the guy after I finished the video to see if I can talk to the people who are organizing the strike. Uber we would take a cab ride. The prices in Kenya are relatively similar to what's in America when you're talking about like real estate and stuff like that. And so you can actually talk about those things in dollars. When you're talking about a cab ride, if I paid $4 for a cab ride, that would be amazing. Like an Uber ride, that would be amazing. That said, if you were going on cab, you'd be paying massively more prices. The prime minister here, or the president here, his son is taking a cut out of Uber. I think it's like 10% out of Uber. So anything that's paid, 10% of it goes to him. This is massively corrupt. Everybody knows it's corrupt. And they're out there striking for it. Now, the United States, it's not that much different. Like, our corruption is we can put money into a campaign. And, Uber is, yes, ruthlessly exploiting its workers by essentially building an application where they're hoarding money to the top while forcing down rates for drivers. Now, you and I will use an Uber because it's the cheapest thing and we don't make ends meet like talking about. And it's like, God, man, I feel like a horrible person doing this. By the same token, I can't even do this trip if I can't do this. You know what I mean? Like, people, this system is so fucked up. Like I was telling my wife, I was like, it's one of those religions where even if you don't believe in their God, you're going to kneel. Because under the capitalistic system, you have constraints that are on you that are compelling your behavior. Why do you want that? I scream about, why do you want that system that's compelling your behavior in this way? I don't know. I agree with you because I don't see how a system that incentivizes corruption to the degree that it incentivizes corruption, and you seem to have a government that's completely detached from what the public wants, and the public seems to be blissfully unaware. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that fixes itself. I don't. So I agree with you. I just don't know what to do about it.
And that's where my frustration comes in, because you understand that.
Yeah.
But yet you're still focusing on.
I'm still stuck.
I understand, yeah, you're still stuck with the Ortez. I understand it, but I'm not trying to say like, okay, don't cover that or don't focus on that.
Yeah.
But my thing is there's no, like, especially there's just no voices, there's no propaganda, there's no media on the left that is breaking down the psychology of why.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see. Meaning the workable point of view. Like, why is the workable point of view this way? Like, why does the person,
exactly,
why is that guy unawake? If that is like, right, why is that guy not aware? Why is that guy allowing the company to exploit him in this way? Now, some people have this idea that there's no such thing as exploitive labor if a person enters into a contract. That's nonsense. If you're broke, dead poor, and the fact is you're compelled to work at a plantation just based on your needs. Oh, God, I need something to eat. I need something to drink. I need a house. I need to pay for all of these babies that I keep, popping out because I don't know how babies are made. I don't have any kids. I'm just saying. I'm making a point that, like, you're compelled by those things to find a work. Like, you can die and starve in the streets without labor. And so you're always forced by your own needs. You don't have to have somebody with a whip. The very act of you dying in the street, not having your needs met, forces you to do something. So, yeah, if you don't have anything else, you can't find a job, you end up with Uber. Now, is that really a situation where you entered into a contract, on your own whims? You can, in a funny kind of way, yes, but in a funny kind of way, no. Funny kind of way, yes. I agree with you, man. Maybe, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe there does need to be more focus on that. Maybe you're right. Maybe, like, yes, I'm going to do politics because it's a political channel, but also,
of course,
like, to bring up why people think a particular way. Like Noam Chomsky's manufacturing consent and how they how people's mindset gets, I guess you could say, why they think it's right. I don't know. I'm sure no way to put it. But no, I appreciate it, man. I get it. I appreciate your call, man.
That was my only frustration, man. And like I said, I like your content.
That frustration is not just with you. Look, if I got, it's one of those things where I like, I'm reading a book by this guy named, what is it, Chalmers Johnson. I think it's Chalmers Johnson. And his argument is, if you analyze societies going back from Rome to Britain, and the way that those societies unraveled, just kind of fell apart and couldn't maintain themselves, there's so many similarities between what took place
the
then. Yeah, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like I'm reading that book, and I had two emotions. One, the first emotion was going through the number of people that we've murdered, killed, maimed, government that we've taken down. Where he's gone through it in painstaking detail, and it hurts to read. Because all of this is done with your tax dollars and in your name. And you realize that, what's the quantity of pain that a person is taking when they feel bad just in general, and you add to that missing a leg, missing an arm, being tortured. Many of these people were innocent. And then the second thing is, and by the way, like other empires, you are also collapsing, and here's evidence of such. Look back at history for a historical context compared to where you're living now. Like, the book, he's dead now, and it's only gotten worse. Like, that's the part that's even more mind-blowing. Like, as you read the book, I think he's like George Bush, and you're like, oh God, this world is coming to an end. And then you get to Obama, and Obama goes into 7 other nations, and then you get to Trump, where there is a complete detachment from what the fuck they're talking about. They potentially, do you realize, I'm sorry to keep you on, I'm sorry. Do you realize
No, go ahead.
Israel pushes a Russian jet. Israel has an illegal military strike in Russia. In Syria. This illegal military strike pushes a Russian plane, a reconnaissance plane, into the line of fire to be shot down. The Russian Defense Ministry says that's Israel's fault, because if you weren't bombing this country legally, we wouldn't have lost this plane. The very fact that you did X means we lost this plane. We will retaliate. Both of these are nuclear power nations. Now, the moment that there's any strike on Israel, the United States is going to get involved, meaning you've ended up with this war just by virtue of how these guys are interacting. Right. Now, mainstream media, CNN, is running a story on Donald Trump's dick with the porn star talking about Donald Trump's cock. We're almost at war. They did another one on Bert and Ernie about whether Bert and Ernie was gay. This is CNN. This is mainstream news. This is mainstream news.
And I like, to me, at this point, I that's what I expect, because the news is just propaganda.
Yes.
It's never going to inform you. It's never going to inform you what's really going on. It never warns you of, like, if you look at the financial crisis, they had like CNBC going out there saying buy stocks, and anytime you hear that, like, you could basically expect a crash, because they're basically, the run is over, basically.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, like I say, it goes back to my frustration. If there's nobody out there that, like I said, explaining the psychology, explaining the tactics, explaining how the system is being ran and why, then it's going to continue. Because most people, like, when they turn to their leftist, news in America, they're going to the Young Turks, and the Young Turks are, they're trash. Yeah. I'm sorry, they're trash. So it's like there's no voice, there's no outlet, there's nothing out there that is explaining the system, and it's like breaking down the system to where it's common knowledge.
Yeah.
Until that person on the street that you talk to is like, yeah, well, you already know what it is, with the news and stuff like that. People are still watching it. Like, the common thing I hear about people that watch, like, cable news is, well, I got to know what the enemy is doing.
Yeah,
and
right.
Like,
I've heard people say that. I've heard people say that. All right, man. Thank you very much for the call. I really appreciate you calling in. Right. It's like George Galloway used to tell people, thank you for arguing with me. And I love that. I used to love that, because it's argument not as blood, I'm trying to bludgeon the guy. It's an argument to some degree of, let's find where we, let's bump around and figure out where we are. I love that. That's one of the aspects of the call-in that I love. The aspects of call-in that I hate is people who are just pushing this kind of propaganda or nonsense. No, I appreciate your call, man. I really do.
No problem, man.
Have a good one.
All right, you too.
All right. Excellent phone call. That one went well. I saw somebody say, keep your word for once. Hang up the phone. Oh, God, that's awesome. Let's see. And somebody sent a donation, so I appreciate it. This one is fighting the wrong fights fight to pick up conservatives to replace lost progressive votes is pointless. If 45% don't vote, you're fighting over failing grades. Over half of those who don't vote wanted their vote to matter and a candidate to represent them. 22% is competitive. Wow, that's actual information and knowledge. I love that. Cory in the Pharma House. This is going to be brutal. If Cory Booker of Pharma Cash feels comfortable getting a selfie with me, I'm not doing my job of scaring the shit out of him. Scaring him shitless. He should fear being near me. I would rip him so hard, Pfizer would think earthquakes are happening at headquarters. God, I love that one. That has been one of my favorites. If he's like, he should be terrified of you. Like he should fear being in your presence with the ripping off your shirt. Man, if Cory Booker of Pharma Cash feels comfortable getting a selfie with me, I'm not doing my job scaring them shitless. He should fear being near me. I would rip him so hard, Pfizer would think earthquakes happen at headquarters. The reason why that trips me out, it puts me in the mind of like Hulk Hogan or like one of those wrestlers. Like this guy, just a hulking man whose people are just terrified of being near him because he think he's just going to rip his head off. Oh God, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. God, that's funny. Jamal's room, like the Kool-Aid man, somebody just breaks in. She was arrested and detained for a couple of hours, not really jailed. Who are you talking about? Who's locked up? So Seattle socialist Shama Shawant could lead the third party. Yes, love that woman. She's awesome. Love that woman. Can someone tell me what the main beef with TYT is? I hear subtle digs here and there, but nothing direct. I'm honestly just curious. Am I missing something? So, yes, you're going to hear that because there are a lot of people that don't like TYT. Some of that's fair, some of that's not. So it kind of depends on what the criticism is. It is true that they did these kind of cockamamie schemes to bring cash, like, raise $2 million, and then firing the journalists immediately after people gave them $2 million. You can imagine that would rub some people wrong way, thinking that when they gave money to get a journalist that they didn't necessarily expect that journalist to be fired after 2 years. There was that, or 1 year. I'm sorry, 1 year. There's that. There's this other thing with the Clinton thing. So, Cenk, you were getting out there telling people to vote Hillary Clinton, and they're saying, I'm not saying support Hillary Clinton, I'm just saying go out there and vote for her, as if there was a distinction in those things. Yeah, in the political space, your vote is your support. It's a political space. It's a one-dimensional space. You went out there and voted for her, and you told your people to vote for her. So, you have a lot of people who fundamentally disagree with that because, if we're being honest, they look at it as Sanders was cheated, and if you're going to go out there and co-sign the cheating, then to some degree, you're going to take flack for it. The network calls itself the Progressive Network, and when the person who was leading this kind of progressive revolution is being ruthlessly cheated, the Progressive Revolution put its guns down and ran in the opposite direction. Rebel headquarters put his guns down and ran in the opposite direction. People have feelings about that. People have feelings. I mean, sometimes this goes further than that in some of the criticisms. I mean, $20 million is one of the things that always comes up. Look, that one is more of a true or false thing. It's the argument that TYT has assiduously stuck to, and one that I actually agree with him on, is that money influences politics. If you need 90% of the people who win elections, if that boils down to getting the most money, then you're probably going to focus on getting the money short of some kind of public outcry that demands your attention focused in other ways. If that's true in the political space, why wouldn't that necessarily be true in the digital media space when you're getting a large amount of money given to you, $20 million, by some Democratic operative or whatever, or investor? The catch here is that if TYT's argument is right, then why wouldn't the argument be right in these terms? Immediately after getting this, people started looking and saying, okay, what is the content? And trying to make a dissociation between whether the content has changed in order to line itself up with more of its, you could say, its Democratic contributor or a person who's a Democratic investor. The content looks more like MSNBC. Now the question becomes, has the content changed to look more like MSNBC Lite because of the investment made by the Democratic contributor? And if the argument that an investment creates a certain degree of influence, then why is that not true here? I don't necessarily think why that's a horrible argument. It feels kind of, rough to say. But if the argument is made, pointed out in all these other spaces, why is it not true here? I have patrons. Now, for my patrons, if my patrons say, we would like you to do a show on this, and they give me a few lists, every so often I'm going to do a show that my patron wants because they're my patrons. Like, I would be crazy and insane not to. Many of the shows that they give me are shows that I want to do anyway, so there's no conflict there. Every so often there's a conflict, but most of the time there's a push and stuff that I may not necessarily see under normal circumstances from people sending them to me. Of course I see in my patrons list because they're in my patrons list and they're going to come up more readily. That's dealing with like $2. That's like $1. That's like $1. What does $20 million look like? What's $20 million look like? Look, people have various complaints. Mine more to political stuff. Yeah, mine is more political. Like him saying Nerf bombs. I'm deeply progressive, but Nerf bombs. Yeah, people have issues. People are going to have feelings. It's what it is. I don't necessarily think they should be taken. No, I'm attacked unfairly. I don't necessarily think they should be taken off the air. I know some people are more harsh on this point. I don't understand that point. And I am not even in this camp that believes they're not in my sandbox per se, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that they dovetail on, even though, yeah, they're MSNBC Lite at this point. But yes, people have issues with TYT. Because I don't think anything I just said makes excuses for TYT. This is kind of what I mean. Nothing that I've just said made excuses for TYT. I literally explain in the way I process this what people issue is. Frost Nixon, TYT's content is like CNN and MSNBC because they get their news from TV. Yeah, pretty much. Well, right, that's fair. MSNBC Lite, yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Pet Hacker, what are you talking about? Premium P, there are a lot of them out there. TYT is not really progressive. Come on, Pet Hacker. I mean, Cenk Uygur told me he was deeply progressive. I mean, if he tells me he's deeply progressive, certainly, it has to be true. Certainly has to be true. Oh, no way. God, no. TYT was lying again. Please show me that video. Please give me the clip. TYT was lying again, this time about Beto. Straight up lies. Oh, man. Please show me that clip, Garden. Please give me that clip. All right. This has gone on for... I thought this... I got to be honest. I thought this video was going to go on for... I always lie and say it's going to be short. It's not. I don't lie on purpose. She was laying there and I accidentally tripped and my penis fell into her hair vagina. I want to read this one again also. Fighting the wrong fights. Fighting to pick up conservatives to replace lost progressive votes is pointless. If 45% don't vote, you're fighting over failing grades. Over half of those who don't vote wanted their vote to matter and a candidate to represent them. 22% is competitive. There's an article by Mehdi Hassan, and I think he is looking at this all sorts of wrong, even though he's one of the brightest debaters that I've seen out there. He's making this argument that this stuff boils down to race, that Trump won because of issues of race and sex and like people are essentially racist and sexist, and that was the reason why Trump won, and that people bringing up arguments of economics are somehow misinformed. That is utter lunacy. Now, what I mean by this is I completely agree with him that there are some people who are racist and sexist, and I would even agree with him that those racist and sexist people that went to the polls probably voted for Trump. I don't agree with him that was the motivator that got him to win. What I mean by that is, what about the people who didn't show up? Like, we're talking about the people who voted. I'm talking about the people who didn't vote, and what was the reason that those people didn't vote? And is that reason that they didn't think those people represented their interests? And what does it mean to represent their interests? And does that change their opinion if that interest that's being represented is done so economically? I understand what he's saying. He's even making the point to saying in some cases, people who wanted, who were worried about economics voted Hillary that much more. Fair enough. Fair enough. I agree that there could be aspects of this that I'm wrong on. And I'm going to go through some of the studies he's given. I'm trying to get to this point of not holding on to anything. Like, many of the people that were in the immigration debate, and I ended on this, the immigration debate, and I may screw this up because I wasn't thinking about this in advance. If you remember, there was this large thing of immigrants at the border, like a big issue with it. And Obama was putting in policies that was trying to get the people to go back home. Essentially, if we can make this hellish enough, if we can make their stay just miserable enough, then they can go back to where they came from. Some of this, and I don't remember the timeline on this, so forgive me if I'm missing some of this. He does this allowing people to stay based on, I can't think of the name of the program right now, it'll come to me. But essentially, if people came here with their families, they can stay. Like, we're not going to send kids away through no fault of their own. God, I've done so many shows on that for right now, for whatever reason, the name of it's not coming to me. But what you find out is some of that has to do with people coming to the border because their parents were here, like, or relatives were here. Meaning, the program itself, to some degree, did spur a certain degree of people coming to the border. Now, whether the solution to that is send people back is one thing, but the honest conversation that you have there is somewhat of a true or false. And how do you deal with that? Now, the problem here is that you can never really have an honest argument when you're in politics. The problem in having an honest argument in politics is that the other person, if they hit you in a certain soft spot, then even if what you're doing is right, it may be politically not necessarily in your best interest. So it's easier to make the argument that these people are coming in and they need our help, as opposed to, well, it was people who were coming here because of family. It's the difference in those arguments. One is harder to make, the other is a bit easier. Yeah, it's just hard to have honest arguments. But that said, building the border is stupid. I mean, building a wall is stupid. Building the wall is fundamentally ridiculous. I'm sorry. This country is massive. Like, do you realize how big this country is? And it is not the immigrant that is stealing your job. It is not the immigrant that is making your life miserable. Your country has certain issues revolving around the way it handles wealth. When you have 95% of the wealth going to the top 1% under Obama, the socialists, the communists, as we hear people call them, what's going to take place under Trump? And why do you believe that a society that gives that much wealth to the top 1%, like, why is that okay? Whatever. Step back for the moment from this idea of what you do for a living, what other people do for a living. Why is that okay? 95% of the wealth going to the top 1%. What has the 1% done that has warranted them getting 95% of the scratch that's taking place? Think of all the people that you engage in the course of your day, all of those people who are doing a job, all of those people who are laboring behind a desk, fixing coffee, doing the lawn, scrubbing shoes, whatever. All of those people that make those things make your city run. And if any of those people were missing, you no longer have a city that's functional. If even the garbage man stops doing what he does, your society collapses. Then how are you giving 95% to the top 1%? That's what I'm trying to impress upon you. The caller that kind of called in, and I try to make that point of, why does this logically make sense? How does this logically make sense? If you have a system that's doing that, then you have a problem with your system. That needs to change. That's the point that I try to make. Anarcho-syndicalism. I'm really thinking about it, a variation of what will in a sandbox. Yeah, I don't know how those. I don't know enough about it. I know the basics, but it's one of those things of how does that how do you do that in a large scale? And maybe it's one of those things where I'm so broken in perspective that I have a hard time seeing around my own ends. My own ends. Yeah, good point. The only people who have the right to botch at the immigrants are the poor people whose neighborhoods have been flooded and people right on the border. Again, the situation are caused by poor policies, yes. So let's talk about Sweden for a moment. Swedish Democrats run this election on this idea of immigration. Now, Sweden is a much smaller country. Sweden has taken in a large share of immigrants in comparison to the population size. Many of the people who came in as immigrants ended up in certain areas that created, you can say, kind of like ghettos. At least that's the way we would see them in the United States. If you're living in that area, are you saying you don't have a right to bitch? Now, the left looks at this and says, you can't bitch about this. It's not the immigrant. You can't talk about the immigrant, blah, blah, blah. And then those people go to the right wing because the right wing is saying something that pertains to what they're living and their experience. I tried to make this point before, and somebody got very cross at me from Sweden and sent me an email that was essentially saying, look, dude, the problem is not. And my point to him was, whether or not the problem is what you think it is, at the end of the day, those people are experiencing something that you are saying or pretending as if is not as severe. From your radical distance, you can be pretty calm about what those people are experiencing. If those people are voting a particular way, clearly those people are experiencing a particular thing. And it's not just propaganda. The left has this thing of, well, this is an economics issue, and if we fix that, I guarantee you that the people who are living in that situation doesn't want to hear about this is an economics issue. Even if that's true, the government of that country allowed those people to come in without giving the adequate investment into making sure that they had decent living situations, at least for some. For some, it worked perfectly fine. For others, the integration didn't go all that well, and the numbers that they took in might have been too much. That's not me being racist. That's not me being sexist. That's not me being anything. You may say I might be wrong, but at the very least, that perspective or that point of view is something that the left needs to entertain because the left is losing support to simply monsters. There's nothing wrong with being honest about the immigration issue at all. Nothing wrong. People perceive the immigrants as a problem. Yeah, they're not. The comprehensive reality is, immigrants are not the problem here. Your country is allowing them to come into the country. Fair enough. Your country has resources to deal with them, to integrate them properly. Yes, fair enough. Immigration is not the problem. The problem is the way that they're being integrated, and the government's not wanting to pay for it. We want to take them in, but we don't want to put the adequate resources in to make sure this is taken in, okay? The immigrants are not the problem. Immigrants are not the problem. You can make a sane case for improving the immigration system. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Yes, that's what I'm trying to do. What did Tim Flobuck say? I hear people saying, Tim Flobuck, I hear you. Garnome, I've lived in New Mexico my whole life and constantly have people in New England bitching to me about the immigrants. They can't even find a state on the map. That's true, by the way. That is true. George Galloway have had people call into his show. And the people would bitch, complain, and rail about immigrants. He's like, when have you ever even seen an immigrant? And there are cases where a person can't even articulate it's not even a problem they're having. They're bitching about something that is somewhere else. So yeah, Tim, yes, that's true sometimes. That's true. That is true. The catch here, and the problem is always, which one is more true? Like when I'm looking at Sweden, I don't live in Sweden. And so I can only go by the two impressions that I have. One impression of, here's an immigration system when it works well, and here's it when it doesn't. And there's going to be a percentage where it doesn't. Let's be honest. And in the cases where it doesn't work all that well, are there people living nearby that may be bothered by it? Yes. Will there be some racist people somewhere else in the country that may be putting up? Yes. The goal is, is it true? And the problem here is, whether it's true or not, you got to deal with it. Hey, maybe that's propaganda warfare. Maybe that's saying I want to fix the immigration system and try to dump more money into getting it right. Saying I care for the immigrants and we want to make sure it's a better place. I'm saying you still need to engage it. That's all I'm saying. And you can't engage it in this professorial way, of talking about economics. That's a fail. Politically, that is a fail. I'm sorry, it is. It doesn't fly. It doesn't fly. It doesn't fly at all. "99% of the time, the politicians do not inform voter citizens." That's the EU that's demanding the... You don't tell me how to raise my goats. Oh, God. All right. I'm going to end this. Let me make sure I haven't missed anybody. All right. I think I got the last one. All right, guys. I'm going to be, by any means necessary, tonight. I'm going to call into the show. It's supposed to be at 3. It's 11:45 there. All right, so I'm going to call into the show and talk to the guys and be on the show on the radio. That's going to be amazing. I hope that flies. I hope that goes okay. So that should be fun. So check them out if you get the chance. And I may see you guys either later tonight or tomorrow. I have some work that I really want to get done on the podcast. So, all right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the work through Patreon. Even $1 helps. So, just saying. Thanks all. Bye-bye. And we are